And one of those topics I wanted to discuss, as you can see from the title, is Sabrina Carpenter. She's kind of been on the news. Obviously, she released her new single, Man Child, which we also gave a reaction to, which you can also find over there on YouTube on one of our channels. But she had a a reveal of her album album cover that was, controversial, to say the least. It had people in their feelings. It had people responding. It had people, had people putting out think pieces, which, it created quite a stir. It had a lot of people having a lot of opinions about said album cover, which, you don't typically see as much these days. Album covers obviously have lost a bit of their luster in terms of just their importance to music and, just their general impact, because people aren't physically going out and buying CDs and vinyls and things anymore. But, something like this to have the impact and have the traction that it did was surprising, to say the least. Was surprising, but it's dope to see that art is still kind of important in terms of music and like getting that conversation. But obviously the conversation around it has taken some turns, some weird places, had people having some strange reactions to it, some visceral reactions to it, and much more than I thought would ever be, just from my first kind of look and a look at the actual cover. But, good art creates conversation. So let's check this out. Let's see what Fantano had to say about this whole Sabrina Carpenter situation, because he had a video that I want to check out.
Hey everyone, it's Music's Anthony Fantano. You have clicked on what should be a very interesting topic coming out of the world of pop music and concerning one of the biggest and buzziest pop stars of today, Miss Sabrina Carpenter. She has been recording and writing music for quite a while now, but really since she had Mi Espresso pop off commercially in the way that she has, her growth and her momentum has just been unstoppable, with the super successful album that followed the release of that single, the even more successful,
which we also gave reaction to. Short and Sweet, I believe, was the actual album title. It was a decent project. It was surprisingly good for what I was kind of expecting. Much more layered, I guess would be to say, and what I thought would be kind of just your generic kind of pop affair that just cashed in on her newfound fame was actually she took some creative, inventive swings and like actually put out some kind of more kind of music that you can actually dig your teeth into and kind of dig into and actually give thoughtful opinions about, and had a little bit more going for it than your typical pop affair. So it was a surprisingly good project from Sabrina Carpenter, and one that I think has kind of aged surprisingly well for the time it was kind of released so far.
Successful tour, all of the media opportunities and the like.
And yes, she has blown up. She's become a true household name. She's popping up everywhere. She's working with Louis Vuitton. She's getting flown everywhere. She's doing tours. People are having, full on think pieces about her. And one thing that I will say, especially from like this current generation and current kind of wave of social media and stardom and pop stardom and whatnot, one thing I will say is that normally when you get an artist that's blown up, that's become viral, that's become big and become a star seemingly overnight for some people, is you kind of go through these cycles. It's kind of normal. Like, you kind of first come up as this like underground underdog, and people cheer for you. You get your core fan base, and other fans might become exposed to you and like generally enjoy you and root for your success and want you to be successful. And then, you kind of hit that success, you hit that mega stardom, you hit that like next level of fame and celebrity and, everything that comes with it. And, you still have people kind of cheering for you and root for you or happy for you. But then you start to kind of notice a change. You start to see a little bit more hate comments. You start to see people that aren't your fans that are still following you and kind of joining in conversations more than they did. And kind of to try to bring back the vibes and the temperature of what is going on in your career and why people should like you and whatnot. That kind of, you get the haters, you get the trolls. And then you start to find, a lot of times you do get the full on villain turn, where seems to be a large, loud minority of people that are wishing for your downfall and actively trying to make your downfall happen. And one thing I would say is that that seems to be a typical normal cycle for most celebrities and famous people in general, is that, people are happy that you got your success, you got your fame. And then once they start seeing you everywhere, they get tired of seeing you, one. And then two, they don't think you deserve it. They don't think you've done enough to get there. And they don't think that, you're that talented ever to begin with. It is just the general cycle for most famous people, celebrities, and whatever. One thing, though, from this kind of generation and this kind of current era that we're in with social media, is that cycle, which, usually came down to years. We're measuring, you're measuring that cycle in a matter of years. That cycle has become measured in a matter of months. The cycle from underdog, people cheering for you, rooting for you, to breakthrough star, superstar, to hated person, to people actively wishing for your downfall and hating everything that you do, happens now in a matter of months. It's insane. And I cannot imagine having to deal with that as an artist that was just there trying to, create music, create moments for people that you would bring joy to the world, and to see it flip on a dime as quickly as it did. Go look at Doechii, who we also kind of did a react to about her whole anxiety thing. Just see how quickly you can go from this beloved underdog to most hated person on the internet within a matter of weeks. That cycle, that whiplash is so fucking breakneck now that it's like, I understand why a lot of artists are kind of crashing out on fans these days, because it's gone too far. It's gone entirely too far. At least in the past, people generally have years before they had to fully feel the hatred and vitriol from people that are tired of seeing them win. To now, it happens in the matter of days, weeks, and at the most, months. It's fucking crazy. And I think that we're fully approaching that kind of era now with Sabrina Carpenter, where yes, she will still have her mega fans and she will be successful and she has stardom, but you will also start to see a massive amount of hate and trolling and vocal minority coming out against her, much more than you ever did from just a couple months ago.
And Sabrina is striking while the iron is hot and is giving us another album cycle sooner rather than later. This past weekend, she kicked things off with a brand new single titled Manchild, and she then followed that single up this week with the release of the album cover for this new record. The album is titled Man's Best Friend, and this is what the album cover looks like.
I mean, look, it's clearly, it's meant to create conversation. It's meant to create a visceral kind of reaction to it. She looks like, a dog, like being held by its leash, like man's best friend begging at a man's, like, she's clearly playing on the whole title of everything. She's obviously, her music has been very sexual already in general. She's also played on those tropes of like men and women and relationships. It's pretty much at the core of who she is as an artist in her music. So I wasn't surprised when I saw this album, but apparently a lot of people were.
And maybe some of you wouldn't believe it, but this album cover has actually struck up quite the discourse online. Is it degrading? What is Sabrina doing? I mean, if there's one phrase I can use to sum up this cover and the reaction many people are having to it right now, it's probably Rorschach test. Like, it's just an image that could potentially mean a bunch of different things, and everyone is coming at it quite aggressively with their own wild view and interpretation of it, and just reacting so strongly with that perception. Whether we want them to or not, many of the major culture war topics of today kind of revolve around sex, gender politics, relationships. So anything that digs into sexuality, as a lot of Sabrina Carpenter's content typically does, is going to rub some people the wrong way. And this has been going on with Sabrina for a while now, whether it's within the content of her songs or all of the, recent funny little Juno poses that have been kind of getting clipped and going viral across social media from her performances.
Yeah, she's had, like I said, this isn't the first kind of backlash and controversy that she stirred up. She's fully been embracing her sexual side, which, is kind of she's just doing the stereotypical at this point Disney star route. Like, if you did not know, Sabrina Carpenter was the star of Girl Meets World, which was the sequel to Boy Meets World, which is a big hit show in the 90s. So she was a Disney star turned pop star, which is the route. Like, you go Disney, you come out as this very clean image, innocent image, and they want to break free from that. They want to show that I'm not this character. I'm not this caricature. I'm not this innocent little doll that you put into a box. I'm actually a grown woman that has the same desires and wants and needs as everybody out there. And what do? They go all out. I mean, look at Britney Spears, look at Christina Aguilera, look at Miley Cyrus and her whole bangers era. Like, they rebel. They push back against that image. They push back against the image that outside people that know nothing about them place upon them. They refuse that mantle that people try to put them on, and they try to and the best way to do that and to break out of that seems to have been the way for most of those artists coming out of there is to fully shatter any image that people had of them as this very innocent little girl doll thing by coming out as sexual as fucking possible. That is literally the stereotypical route from Disney to low-key stripper on stage is kind of the route that we've been seeing since the 90s. Like, that is pretty much the go-to. Like, that is just what it is. And so I'm really surprised people that are still getting so shocked and outraged to see them, fully embracing their sexuality to the degree that they do. I just think that's business as usual. And people were really freaking out about some of the performances that she was doing on stage. And I think she had the perfect response. I don't make music for kids. Like, you might look at me as a kid, but I'm not a kid and I do not make music for kids. So why are you bringing a kid to a very adult oriented performance and musician? Because if you actually listen to any of the songs, even the biggest ones, there's a lot of sex going on there. So, like, you probably should not bring somebody that you don't expose to that to it.
And while sex is absolutely nothing new in pop music, that is obvious, Sabrina does explore it and perform it within her art in a way that comes across genuine to the extent that, like, she does come across at least a bit like a horny little goblin, which, I mean, in this...
Hey, bro, come on now, dog. Come on, man.
Yeah, horny little goblin is a fucking crazy way to put that.
Modern era of define yourself and do whatever you feel like is true to you feminism sort of seems like in line with what women should feel empowered to do if they so choose. If Sabrina wants to show off in a somewhat salacious way that she's into being a bit submissive in a sexual context, that is her right, and I don't see why she should be denied that or harassed for it or hated for it. And yet, the most surface level reads of this cover and Sabrina's current era artistically kind of goes like this. Superstar, more like porn star, her whole career revolves around sex now.
So Madonna wasn't a thing. So Britney wasn't a thing. So Christina wasn't a thing. Like, what? Like, this is nothing new.
And also, posts like this have been going even more viral. It's not normal for the new generation of pop girls to do things like this. It's neither sexy nor cool. It's just disgusting and objectifying women.
That's got to be from a person that was born in like the last 15 years, 20 years. Like, it has to be, because were you not around for the 80s and 90s? Like, were you not around for the early 2000s? Like, what are we talking about? The objectification of women is not a new thing within culture.
This Olivia Rodrigo image doesn't even read as sexual. I feel like you need to be demented to see it as such. Because first off, there's nothing sexy about the picture, that is, unless maybe you find vomit enticing. Like, there's not an alluring or even flirty kind of look on Olivia's face in the picture. She's like quite dead-eyed and her mouth is open, again, as if she's puking. Then you have all the stars and the guts logo coming out of her mouth. And you have the hand behind her head holding her hair. Yes, but that's being done as if she's like puking. You've never been at a party where someone's been sick, or you've never seen like a girl, or maybe you as a man have never like held a girl's hair as they're having to puke in the toilet. As someone who has had to hold someone's hair before as they were puking, it is not a sexual act. And then there's the Sabrina image, which yes, does have a sexual connotation to it. But the thing is also, it's Sabrina's choice to do this. It's her album cover. Believe it or not, in the midst of this discourse, there are some people who have been moronically bringing up Madonna, saying like, oh, Madonna would never degrade herself for a man. She would never be on her knees.
Wait, who brought that up? Madonna's like one of the first things I think come to mind when we talk about pop stars that broke out of whatever image and became like this massively sexual thing on stage and just in their performances. Like, what? Where are these people from? Like, who is saying this?
For a man, she would never do that. Look at these pictures of her with guys all dressed in leather, and she's...
All right, I can kind of see what she's trying to say, or what she's trying to say here is that she's the complete opposite of what Sabrina is doing. Actually, she has never portrayed herself as Mrs. Dalton. So I mean, I can kind of agree with that. Like, from what I know from Madonna, like she was the dom. She was the dom in a lot of those situations, as you can see from the ropes and the leather and like, you know, all the men that are bound. What Sabrina is doing, which is, you know, honestly nothing new again, but what she is doing, she's clearly satirizing the 50s and 60s kind of pinup girl era of, you know, American culture. Like, a lot of these artists are going retro in their music and their sound, and she's just kind of like fully playing into that. Her music clearly is alluding to that kind of time period and kind of tongue in cheek playing with the image and the relationship gender norms of that time period and kind of like flipping them on their head. Yes, she does. Like, Man-Child, yes, there are moments where she seems a bit submissive and a bit whatever, but like, she's clearly satirizing, she's clearly tongue-in-cheek, she's clearly playing with those concepts of what a relationship and what a man and woman would look like, especially from the kind of time period aspect, and bringing it to this modern era in terms of like how out of place that actually feels with kind of how culture is now. That is clearly something that she's aiming to do. She's aiming to play with that kind of concept of relationships and men and women. And like, she's clearly doing it all with a tongue firmly in cheek. And if people are not picking up on the satire of everything, because she's also got a clear sense of humor, I think that says a lot more about you as a person than her.
He's like sitting on top of them like they're chairs, when there's literally pictures of Madonna in a...
That's a crazy... See, I said I agree with her, but now I got to take it back, because clearly Madonna is doing the exact same fucking thing.
Submissive context within, like, you know, her whole sex book that she did back in the day, which again is something that I feel like if a pop star did now, some of these people would just be flipping shit about, which again kind of brings me back to the Rorschach test point and how fragmented our society is currently when it comes to a whole host of social issues, but especially stuff around sex, because you have some people who are hyper radical and conservative. You have some people who are hyper just inexperienced and afraid and maybe insecure around these issues. And you have some people who are just hyper progressive on these topics and feel like Sabrina is not taking it far enough. Because here's like the other side of the coin of this debate. People saying stuff like, she constantly does Disney Channel versions of the stuff stars like Madonna used to do, but they still generate discourse as if they're daring, crazy, controversial, problematic, whatever, another sign of the lifelessness of this pop era, which I wouldn't go as far as to say that. Honestly, I actually think this current era of pop music is quite interesting and entertaining. And while Sabrina is not my favorite, there are a lot of tracks from her that I like and enjoy. And I think that with an album cover like this, she's doing her best to kind of navigate the fact that she wants to do something that explores sexuality in some way. But again, given that lack of monoculture, where exactly the envelopes are to push on such a topic aren't exactly super obvious. I think a cover like this does what it can to kind of like assess that broad array of perspectives on this topic.
Also, just clear point. If a cover art can have people spiraling this crazy. If just a cover art can have such differing viewpoints and differing responses from both sides of the conversation. One saying she's not going far enough, she's doing a Disney version of what other artists did before. One saying like she's over sexualizing everything and like da. Like if you're having these two very divergent opinions and reactions to just an image, just a cover art, said work of art is worked and is doing exactly what it's aimed to do, which is create conversation, is to create reaction, to get people talking about her project that is coming out. Like, it's fucking genius. One aspect about Sabrina Carpenter, like, I don't think she gets enough credit for, and her team doesn't get enough credit for, is they're extremely good at creating these moments of conversation. Almost everything that she does right now is causing some sort of conversation, some sort of think piece, some sort of debate on these social media platforms, which is only, again, feeding into her popularity, her fame, and the attention that her music is getting. Obviously, it's a double-edged sword because you're going to get a lot of negativity and you can get oversaturated and people kind of hating that kind of aspect of it. But at the end of the day, all press is good press. And like, if she can create this kind of conversation just from a fucking image, a relatively benign image at that, she might low-key be a genius marketer, honestly.
Kind of split the difference between where everybody is at and then find exactly the point that is going to be pushing it far enough to where it gets reactions, but not so far that she seems like she's completely out of her mind. Given the way the discourse has been shaping up around this cover so far, I would say Sabrina and her collaborators like nailed that pinpoint pretty accurately. I think over the past 10 years, we've been
fucking nailed it.
Seeing more people who
if I'm like a marketer or publicist or whoever like came with the idea for this, I'm fucking high-fiving everybody like, good job, we fucking did it. Like, yes, like they did exactly what the fuck we were aiming for.
They are maybe a bit more sheltered and conservative socially, at least. And that is not something that is Sabrina's fault or is within Sabrina's control. I mean, what I can at least commend here is that, at least in her own way, Sabrina is sensing that's happening on some level. And again, finding where exactly that point to push is so that you actually get a reaction and you sort of like challenge people's perceptions of sexuality. And I think she's obviously finding ways to challenge it, not only for people who might have just broadly conservative views, but for people who might have a bit of a twisted view of feminism, thanks to the internet. And in this knee-jerk fashion, read any woman presenting herself in a sexual fashion, especially within pop music, as like her objectifying herself or degrading herself in some way. In some horrendous cases, this even comes along with some sexual shaming and body shaming too. I'm supposed to believe she's not pandering to men when she promotes unreasonable beauty standards that she doesn't even meet, along with her countless other offenses. Okay.
Jealousy. That's pure jealousy. That's pure envy and jealousy. Like when you come out like that, another woman, at least I can assume is the number one based on her profile avatar. You never know these days. But the fact that like you come out that strongly and like kind of try to shit on how on her looks is pure envy and jealousy.
Okay, first, what other offenses? And secondly, how is Sabrina simultaneously promoting unrealistic beauty standards, but also not meeting them by just presenting herself physically to the world in the way that she just looks? And then there's this accusation that Sabrina is blatantly pandering to men in this disgusting way with her work and with the way she's presenting herself, which, like, again, given how socially conservative and sexually conservative a lot of people, and especially dudes, seemingly are these days. For the most part, a lot of guys I see on the internet react to Sabrina Carpenter saying, "Oh, she's a whore. Why would a woman who used to be on the Disney Channel present herself to the world sexually in any way whatsoever?" I don't know, maybe because like she's an adult now and adults have sex. Like she's friggin' 26. She's pushing 30.
That's what I'm saying. Like she's a grown ass woman, and like that's clearly what she is trying to push back against, is that people, because she's also fucking tiny as shit, like barely 5 feet tall, because people look at her as a child, as a fucking kid, and she's clearly not. She's a grown woman, and like only forcing her to go in this direction even more. Obviously, I don't know because I can't get in her head, but like I would assume that this is also making her want to go even harder into the opposite direction because I'm a grown woman. I'm 26 years old. I can do whatever the fuck I want, and like y'all out here looking at like holding me up to this purity innocence test when that's not something I ever wanted for myself. Yeah, I'm going in that. I'm going that way.
Better do sex stuff. I also love this take as well, which was in reaction to the pretty salacious Rolling Stone cover Sabrina just did, which came along with an interview too, where she actually addresses how obsessed people are with the way she incorporates sex into her work. It's always so funny when people complain. They're like, all she does is sing about this, but those are the songs that you've made popular. Clearly you love sex, which is true. Not all of Sabrina's songs are directly about sex or have like in your face sexual themes. I mean, literally her new song Man-Child isn't exactly a sexy cut. In fact, I feel like that song is more representative of what many of her tracks are about, complaining about a relationship dynamic where she's getting the short end of the stick.
I mean, yes, one of her other biggest songs, Please, 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 wasn't about sex. It was clearly about, men and women in relationships and how she has issues with a lot of men in relationships. That's honestly the core of a lot of her fucking music.
Because the guy she's with is either immature or stupid on some level. And what's hilarious to me is that she keeps, at least creatively, subjecting herself to these relationship dynamics over and over and over. And even on the bridge of the track, in my opinion, she hits us with a bit of cope, saying, "Oh, I like my boys playing hard to get, and I like my man all incompetent. I swear they choose me and I'm not choosing them." What does that even mean? What the hell are you saying? Like, they're choosing you, but also you're volunteering to be in these relationships and you're complaining about being treated this way constantly, but yet you're also admitting that you like your men stupid. I mean,
which, might be a shock to some people, but there's a lot of people out there like that, complain about their relationships and complain about only finding shitty partners and finding shitty relationships, but then only liking certain types of people and clearly being attracted to that type of person for the wrong reasons and then complaining about said person. Like, yes, that is a tried and true trope and unfortunately a very cliche trope that you'll find a lot in society and in people in general. Like, this isn't some made up shit or like stuff that only she experiences. She's clearly speaking about a lot of experiences that people have because a lot of people get into a lot of relationships with people that are not good for them and they continually find themselves in those type of places and relationships. And she's clearly acknowledging that and trying to, distill that into song form because that is something that I think a lot of people can probably relate to.
in my opinion, if there's anything to point out as annoying about Sabrina's writing at this point, it's this dynamic. Sabrina outright admitting that sex sells, and that's why she does it. She's not trying to make a commentary. She's not doing it for so-called empowerment. It's money, notoriety. She doesn't care if it's controversial. Okay, like, first off, she didn't say that. That's not what she said. She said she makes songs about a range of different topics, and it just so happens to be the most sexual ones and bits that people are the most obsessed with. And finally, I think I'll give my own read of this whole message or presentation Sabrina is doing here. One that I hope you guys see as maybe being a little bit more nuanced and understanding of what an album cover like this signifies. I think it kind of makes sense within the creative rubric that Sabrina Carpenter has been presenting us with the past year plus or so, because to willingly involve yourself in any kind of sexual dynamic with somebody where you are playing a submissive role, that typically involves a lot of trust and communication and understanding, which when you look at a lot of Sabrina's writing around relationship dynamics are clearly aspects of her romantic involvements that are lacking or just not there. So in a way with this cover, she could be communicating that like a relationship dynamic or a sexual dynamic where she might feel safe engaging in this kind of behavior because she actually can trust the partner that she's doing it with might actually be what she is communicating, wanting, and desiring on some level with this cover. And there is also, keep in mind, a juxtaposition going on here with, yes, again, the cover.
I mean, there is a whole entire community just based on the desire to be submissive. It's called BDSM. Look it up if you're unaware of that. So like that's also not a rare or strange things for people to have and want and desires. It is very much a part of a lot of people's, I won't say a lot, but a good portion of the population's psyche. So, I can't speak to whether that is also part of her psyche, but it is definitely a part of our population's psyche. So it's really not that left field as far as what people are trying to make it seem. Like, why would you ever want to be submissive? There are definitely people out there who desire that.
And the hair pulling and the title man's best friend, like, oh, look at me, I'm being treated like a dog. And yet simultaneously, I'm going to kick my album cycle off with a song that's just like outright hating on guys for being completely inept klutzes on a song that on some level does read more like a bumper sticker than an in-depth personal experience. But what do you know?
I mean, it's a song for the girls. It's a song for the ladies. Man-Child is a song for the women to sing loudly and proudly with their whole chest who have felt slighted by men, which is a large portion of females in the population of our women out there. She knows what she's doing. She's playing to the crowd, she's playing to the audience, and she knows this is a song that's going to get the girl singing, period. And yes, she is full of contradictions, and she is a dichotomy, like, but that's also why it works, because yes, she is portraying this very submissive 50s, 60s kind of image of women in relationships and men. But then at the same time, she's also singing about it and complaining about it from a very modern kind of aspect and point of view, and like satirizing it and being tongue in cheek about it, and like kind of like lampooning it, which is, a very clear direction and objective for her music and her whole image at this point in her career. So I don't think it's being a hypocrite. I just think that is a very intentional direction that she is taking.
To do. Though I doubt, even with all of that explanation, it'll make much sense to the more sexually puritanical adults who are reacting to this cover like, it's the worst thing they've ever seen. Oh no, the sky is falling. Yeah, we live in a sexually repressive age, and while Sabrina Carpenter isn't doing it the boldest or the craziest here on this cover, I can at least commend that she's pushing against it a little bit in her own way.
And just the amount of sexual content and sexual imagery out there that you can just find on a cursory glance at Instagram, and then for this to be the one that like pisses people off and like has them all up in arms is fucking hilarious and just hypocritical in itself. But yeah, that's it for Sabrina Carpenter. Well, no, that's not it. That also created me another conversation, another kind of thing I was interested to see, like in terms of controversial album covers. What are some of the more controversial album covers that we've gotten over the years? And which, brought me to this article right here from Euronews. What are the 20 most controversial album covers of all time? Which they also, had the same kind of wavelength and thinking of like, if this is getting people so up in arms and so freaked out, like what other album covers out there that, were actually worse? And they conveniently put a list together for us. The Faith Tones, Jesus Use Me. I mean, obviously, this whole conversation started from this. This is the actual cover. This is the cover that had people freaking out. This is Man's Best Friend, Sabrina Carpenter, where she's obviously very, using a lot of innuendo and wink, wink with the imagery of this all. Just from the title alone, being called Man's Best Friend, which, is typically used and applied to a dog, which is, what they say is man's best friend. And then also, which are also very submissive animals by nature. And then, you have her on all fours kneeling at a man who's holding her head like it's holding a leash. So like, there's a lot of innuendo and hints being thrown at people that are not so subtle. And like, that's what got people really like up in arms about. I think for me personally, this is a very like whatever cover. I didn't have any reaction at all when I saw it. I was just like, oh, okay. But to see people freak out as much as they did was surprising, quite honestly. But here's some of the other covers over the years that have, caused controversy. The Faith Jones, Jesus Use Me. I don't really know why this is commercial. Maybe because of the title. I mean, this looks like AI before AI. This came out in 1964. This looks like AI before AI. I ain't gonna lie. And the most disturbing thing about this is the very uncanny faces going on. Like, they look like this is not their actual faces, but I don't know. Like, I don't really see anything controversial about this. I see something weird and a little off-putting about it, but I don't think anything controversial. Yes, the very famed Beatles Yesterday and Today album cover, one that actually, if I remember correctly, had to get replaced, was never actually truly released, and which made this actual album cover, if you have a copy of it, extremely valuable to have, because it is one that people were not fans of. People, the public had a real kind of outlash and outcry because of these clearly fake baby dolls and meat on their cover, and had people like really freaked out about and like thinking that they were doing on some satanic shit. And like, yes, it became one of their most sought after covers over the years and decades since. It's not one of their most famous songs, but certainly their most notorious. He took a snap of the band in white butcher's coats run by raw meat, dismembered baby dolls, claimed it was a comment against the Vietnam War. U.S. retailers were shocked and refused to stock the album, leading to it being withdrawn and reissued with a more vanilla alternative. Today, the butcher cover is available in pirated forms. It's extremely, extremely valuable if you have it, and those lucky enough to own a have expensive and coveted piece of music history, which is what I was talking about today. This was, what they're doing. This is their social commentary against the war against Vietnam. Again, John Lennon, Yoko Ono, as you can see, full penis out, full bush out. Like, the controversy is in itself that they are fully nude on an album cover that is meant to be sold to the public. Obviously, it sparked a lot of outrage, and they actually sold this album. They sold it, but wrapped in brown paper bags, which is, kind of surprising that they were still able to sell this. But Blind Faith, Eric Clapton, and Ginger Baker, formed with Steve Winwood and Rick Gretsch. Only one album, and to mark the occasion, they listen to photographer. A young topless girl holding a model spaceship. Deeply problematic, was promptly banned and replaced with a more classic shot of the band members. Nudity, titties out. Looks like a very young, maybe not even of age girl. So I can see why that one got banned. The Rolling Stones, Sticky Fingers. Designed by Andy Warhol, which, you can definitely see. You could definitely see where Andy Warhol's kind of influences in here. Matched with this innuendo heavy title, which is Sticky Fingers, which, you can kind of make those connections for yourself. Features a suggested democratic crotch. An original president had a working fly, which unzipped to reveal the underwear. The cover was famously banned in Spain, which was under the fascist rule of General Franco at the time. Oh, okay, so they had a cover, actual interactive cover that you can unzip, which was, kind of fucking creative at the time and very interesting. I wonder if you'd be able to find an original pressing of that. Otherwise, I think it's a very tame cover in terms of what is controversial these days. Roxy Music, I have seen this one. Country Life, photographer, shadow, led many U.S. outlets to censor the image, feeling uncomfortable with the sight of scantily clad models, even though, images of scantily clad models is fucking everywhere these days. Scorpions, Virgin Killer. These are German rockers, 1976. Depicts a naked 10-year-old girl. Yeah, okay. This is fucking controversial. This is a album that should get, and rightly got, outrage, because they put a 10-year-old nude fucking girl on the cover, which is fucking insane to begin with. But like, here you go. To compare this to comparing Sabrina shit to this is like that nothing compares. Here's the Bogs. Never mind the Bogs, which I believe it was controversial because of Bollocks being on the cover. And, times were very different back then in terms of the words and the censorship and what was considered nice for the public, basically. Again, the slits, cut the slits, titties. Simple enough. Scatology. I mean, the name alone is crazy. Yeah, this the name on Scatology. Millie Jackson, back to this. Okay, I mean, an image of her. Yeah. This one, Nirvana Nevermind, obviously one of the most iconic album covers in rock history, but also controversial because of, a little something showing. Ice Cube having, Uncle Sam Dead on the table. This was more controversial simply for the fact of, the politics of everything, the social commentary of everything, of basically saying, this is the death of America, this is the death of the American image, and pretty much the topic of his very socially, politically conscious album that was Death Certificate, and an all-time classic, and yes, had a lot of controversy. This is one of the hardest, most famous album covers of all time, and one that is timeless to this point, from Rage Against the Machine, using a Tibetan monk who inflamed himself in protest of the persecution of Buddhists. Is a very famous image, and the fact that they were able to get this on album cover is kind of crazy. Megadeth, obviously a heavy metal band who plays into the darker side of imagery, and alludes to tongue-in-cheekly to like Satanism and all that, which has been a mainstay in like super heavy metal, and like obviously hanging babies up by the clothesline and all that, that would cause some controversy from certain demographics out there in our society. But also Marilyn Manson, like, he's a walking controversy. Marilyn Manson is a walking controversy whose whole career is based around causing outrage and roiling the feathers of the more conservative corners of society, and that's become like ingrained in his DNA as an artist. So not surprised to see him on this list. He's clearly depicting Jesus Christ here on the cross with his kind of face on it. So a lot of people think it's blasphemous, and caused a huge outcry based on, especially like I believe the Catholic community at the time. The Strokes, I mean, bare ass. You kind of get the point. A lot of this has to do with super sexualization of sexual imagery, a lot of nudity on here, some allusions to religion, and obviously some social and political kind of commentary. But the point is that this is far from the most controversial image cover that we've gotten from an artist, and in relation to the ones that we've just seen, it's incredibly tame. And the fact that it got the reaction that it did was shocking, to say the least, and kind of shows just the weird times that we are in.